feel like the YouTube channel was a long time coming, and I really believe in the universe won't give you something until you're ready for it, right? And so, I kind of
Woo!
tried to have a channel before, when you and I were working together and we
Mhm.
did some of the man on the street interviews in Baltimore, but I feel like I wasn't ready. Like if I would have done it and had critiques or criticisms, or people would have said that they didn't like it, I would have felt it. I didn't have the armor at that point to have that type of a platform in that space at that time.
In 2010, I decided to return to school. It's supposed to be a 1-year break, ended up being a 3-year break. See previous episodes for the story. One of the people who left a mark on my life and that I'm still friends with to this day is my guest, the one and only Miss Krishana Davis. Krishana and I met in media law, and we were both taking a class, and I remember there was a point in time when she was the only person who got like the first project right. And she may not know the story, but I remember like saying, I'm gonna make sure I pair with her. Well, we went on to, she graduated the year before I did, and after she graduated, her and I worked on one of her passion projects together. And since then, she's done so many things, from journalism to communications directing to management. And now she has her own YouTube channel. And you're going to get all of that in this episode. So ladies and gentlemen, here is my conversation with Krishana Davis. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're at episode 92 of Breaking Through Glass Ceilings. And I have to say, I've been waiting for a very, very, very long time to interview this person. She is literally one of my best friends in life. When I talk about my story of going back to school at Morgan, and it's easy to say, "Oh, I would have wished I went right after college, out of community college." She's one of the people I named that I'm glad I didn't. That is the one, the only Miss Krishana Davis. Krishana, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Brian. How are you doing today?
I'm good. It's Friday as we recording this, people getting this on Monday. But, I think this is the perfect way for them to start their week, because you're somebody who I will always say is the Jill of all trades. You literally do everything, and I'm proud of you. And I can't wait to we can showcase that a little bit here.
Well, one, thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it. You've been a great friend. And so thank you for the opportunity to talk to your folks and your audience as well. And just be in community with you, because we haven't seen each other face to face in a while. And so at least we get this opportunity here.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, let's get started. So we met Morgan State University, and this was wow, junior year ish, senior year. Well, I think you was in your senior. I don't know, but anyway, because like mine's is like twisted because I
Yeah,
was
I think I
trying.
might have been in my junior year.
Okay, yeah. So, one of the things that I remember was it was law class, and we ain't gonna go into too much of the stories on like the study parties, but I remember when we had a conversation and we was talking about journalism. You said that you had always wanted to do journalism and used to be called Harriet the Spy when you was younger. Like, when did how did that all come about? Like as a child and then transitioning, because one of the things to note, you didn't major in journalism, which I also want to talk
Yeah, so honestly, I have been a storyteller since the very beginning. I was a very avid reader. And so at some point, you start reading everything in the children's section. And so now
about.
you're in young adult books. And then you kind of start reading everything in young adult books. And I grew up in East Baltimore. And so the Enoch Pratt Library was right up the street from my house. And so my little small library, I had read everything there. And so eventually it got to the point where it was like, okay, I'm going to start writing my own stories because I want to see more. I need more stories, and these authors are not getting things out fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was in middle school, I had a really, really good guidance counselor who noted that they had a creative writing seminar and I was doing really well there. And she said, the teacher and instructor says you're doing really well. Do you want to write? Like, is that the career that you want for yourself? And I was like, yes, 100%. I want to be a fiction writer. And she said, fiction. And, bless her heart, it was a wonderful white woman who was a guidance counselor. And I think that she felt like it would be really tough for me to make a career in fiction writing long term, right? And so instead she said, have you ever thought about journalism? And at that point I hadn't at all. Like, that was not even something that was kind of like in my thought process. Mm-hmm. And so she actually had a reporter from the Baltimore Sun come and talk to me in middle school. I was in the 6th grade. They gave me my first reporter's notebook. I got to go shadow them for a day. And from that point forward, I pretty much knew that I wanted to be a journalist. And so, when I was younger, talking about the Harriet the Spy, I used to also really, really love that movie. I've never read the book because the book is thick. I don't know if you've ever seen the Harriet the Spy book, but it's thick, and I don't know. But the movie was great. And I used to have a purple trench coat, so very similar to the yellow one that she used to wear. And I used to take my binoculars and my little notebook, and I would literally be walking around Baltimore on the east side, like trying to figure out what's what. And granted, nothing really came of that, but my love for writing has always been there. And so I knew that like telling stories was really important and near and dear to my heart. And as I started understanding journalism a lot more, it was important for me to tell the unique and interesting stories about things that were happening in Baltimore, both to the people who lived there, and then all of the systems that were impacting people in the community as well, right? So like from the politics to, different laws and policies that are put in place, how are they impacting like myself, my friends, my family, my loved ones, my community? And so it became really important to me. And I kind of like got this mission to very much like have that transparency so that people in the community can make informed decisions about their lives.
Wow. That's amazing. We're gonna get into the Afro a little bit and the Baltimore Sun because that does come full circle. But just definitely want to touch on Morgan State. Do you have any highlights? Obviously besides like that law class.
Honestly, I think my biggest, plus from being at Morgan was having a lot of professors who cared a lot about me, right? And so, you're very true in saying that I wasn't a journalism major, because actually there wasn't a journalism major when I started at Morgan. So they kept promising a journalism major, and it actually didn't come until I think I was almost in my senior year. And so one of the deans kept saying, well, just wait. And I'm like, I'm not staying here 5 or 6 years waiting on you to get a journalism school. Like, I'm going to go ahead and graduate. So I was an English major. And so I did have a really good professor. I think you took her as well, Professor Alyssa Richardson, who is now a professor in California doing amazing work, has published many books and really like coined mobile journalism. And so, I had a lot of professors, I think, who really poured into me. And so I really very much loved those classes. I remember there was one class where we got to make a magazine. And so I had a associate who went to my rival high school, Sierra, who I know you also know, Brian.
What was your school?
So I went to Poly.
What was your rival high school?
Oh, we don't talk about the number on the hump, but
wow, the great Baltimore City College that holds the lead in the City Poly game by 2. So even if we somehow like let y'all win this year, since we won 12 straight, I'm just saying,
So here's the thing about that. Here's the thing. At City, they'll let people who don't have the academics play on the football team, but at Poly, that doesn't go. So
no.
Poly, if you don't have academics, they're definitely putting you off the team, regardless of you the best player or not. So I'm just saying, like, sports is important. People definitely make good careers in sports, and if you can't cut it academically, it's okay.
Hey, I've seen football players get put off the team and basketball players get put off the team personally. It's real, but it's
that's my talking point, and I'm sticking to it. I'm sticking to that talking point. Like, I don't care.
Oh man, you are a true testament of in post high school life. I'm gonna let a secret out, and people would find this. I actually like more people from Poly than I did from City after high school.
What? I'm not, and I'm the same.
It's like I mean. When it's the City Poly game, I'm on the City side, but I might go over to like during the like tailgate. I might go hang out with some of the Poly people.
As you should. We have fun at the tailgate. I haven't been in a long time, but I hear. But hopefully next year I'll be there. So
yeah, let's make that happen, because I don't plan to go this year. So I'm definitely looking to see what's happening next year. But let's let's get into like the Baltimore Sun and the Afro, because like these are like the papers of record. And I'm gonna give you another shout out because I remember one time you asked me to fill in for you, and it was during this story. Unfortunately, somebody had got killed, and I don't know if you remember, but I vividly remember that Thursday night, like shortly after it happened, I was on Twitter and I saw your tweet because you was on scene at the crime. And then the next day, you had to you was working 2 jobs because that's what Krishana does. She works multiple jobs. She's a hard worker, and now she has like the greatest job in the world if she wants to talk about that and disclose that information. But she you asked me to accompany you on the story, and for me it took me and my career to another level because this was a hard news story, really asking questions after like somebody had just lost their sibling. And I remember like I sent you the voice recorder, and I don't know if you remember, you like fussed me out. Then you realized I had the information in there. And so like that's how our friendship is. Like it's never you want to be around people, and this is the reason why I wanted to have you on here. You want to be around people that's gonna hold you accountable. And that's the thing that I'm always been grateful that Krishana has always done. Like I said, now I had it done right, but still, she ain't think I had it done right. And it's like, no, as a journalist, you're supposed to and like, oh, I'm sorry, it's right there. You remember that? Do you remember?
I do remember this. And what I will also say is what I have also learned and grown into is to like give people the benefit of the doubt, right? And I think that like this is a prime example of the growth that I also needed to like understand that like you have to also give people the opportunity and the benefit of the doubt. And for some reason, Brian, if you hadn't have had it, that could have also been a learning moment too. And so I will also say that like on the flip side of that, I've also grown very much in that way as well.
But yeah, so what was it like working for those companies? Like I said, you grew up reading and consuming that information, and now your name is on bylines.
Yeah, so working for the Afro, I think in reflection, I respect and love it so much more than maybe even I appreciated it when I was doing it. So my mom used to get the Afro American every Friday, and I would get the kids section the same way that I would with the Baltimore Sun. Like you pulling out the comics and you're playing and you're writing. And so I knew the Afro American newspaper like near and dear. And so I remember when I first got the internship and then later hired there, my family cared about it way more than I did. Like I was like, oh, this is cool, but like it's not the publication I want to be at, but it's great. And it was really a disrespect, honestly, for me to have that reaction because Black media is so important and it's been a testament for so long. And it's so important that we pour into our Black institutions because those were the people who were making sure that like Black people were protected, who told people where they could like be and what roles they could take and where they can get employment. And we're really like pillars and staples of our community. And so I think that like, I'm very grateful to have been at the Afro-American newspaper and all the Black publications that I've written for or worked for over the years, because there needs to be more reverence there. And people shouldn't always be looking for the next, right? Like, I think being in the present and the moment, and it is so very much important. And I think that like, the great thing about the Afro, because that staff was so small, it gave me an opportunity to have writing opportunities that I wouldn't have had at a bigger publication. So things that I wasn't getting when I was at the Sun and I interned there, right? So like I got to be the political reporter and I got to cover police accountability and really have a beat that I owned and like was able to grow into in a way that I probably wouldn't have at the Baltimore Sun, right? And so it gave me that like foundation of journalism. It gave me like context. And what I loved so much was like the ease at which I could move in Baltimore because I was also from there, right? And so like if you're going to an event or going to a scene or you need somebody to talk to you, like you have my accent, I'm telling you where I'm from, I'm telling you what high school I went to, or sometimes I would get there and literally be in a part of Baltimore that I didn't live in. So I never forget, I was in West Baltimore, I think covering, I think it was like a police involved death or something like that. So the police killed somebody basically, police brutality. And I was trying to get some information from one of the neighbors and I heard somebody go, Krishana, right? And I'm like looking around like, I'm not in my side of town. Like, who is this like calling me? But it was somebody that I knew from when I was marching in the marching band. And so I was able to get the information I needed to be able to like substantiate the fact that like the police were wrong in this situation, right? But it's because I'm from there. It's because like I have that local tie, because people know me, it changes the dynamic. And I think you're able to do such better journalism from that perspective. And then that later gave the foundation to be able to go to the Sun as well, which I also had a good experience at. But I will say by the time I got to the Sun, even though I was, I think, when I left there, really education reporter is what I was doing. What I really wanted to do was feature writing, like long form culture reporting, arts, entertainment, feature writing. And what's so funny about you talking about hard hitting news and journalism, that's not actually what I wanted to do, but I forgot I was pushed into that space because people say that you have to have all of these credentials first before you can like do these other things. And I think you're so interesting too, Brian, because like you were always so clear from day one about your interests and what you wanted to do. And I will never forget being in that media law class, and I knew that you loved wrestling, but we were media law, and I'm like, okay, here's Brian again. Like, what is he talking about? And what was funny was like 5 guys turned around. It was like, yeah, yo, I saw wrestling last night, and did you see blah blah blah? And I'm like, oh, so all of y'all watch wrestling, and everybody tries to pretend like they don't watch wrestling, right? And so what I just love is that like you've always been clear on your vision and what you wanted, and we're not going to let people like persuade you to do something different, and was able to make a career out of it, right? And I think that like there's such a blessing in that.
Thank you. Wow, I forgot about that, and this like now in the wrestling world, we found this emergence, and a lot of the Black wrestling content creators have found each other, right? And like there's a photo from last year at shout out to those wrestling girls, they had their anniversary party, and you see everybody there together, and people are like, wait, there's that many Black people that love wrestling, and that's the content creators, and everybody sort of has the same story. Nobody took us serious. I've coined the phrase, where were y'all when I was growing up?
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely appreciate you for bringing that up and remembering that. Let's go to, so let's talk about, you was a political science major. What made you choose that? What made you choose political science, even though understanding like you wanted journalism, they didn't have it. You wasn't going to wait around, which is obviously the smartest thing to do. So why political science?
Yeah, I think I've always cared a lot about how the world works and how the world impacts my community, right? And it impacts Black people. And so I knew that basically that there was like a desire I had to be in journalism. But at some point I thought maybe like I would be a lawyer or like work in politics in some degree. And so, what I knew was that like a political science degree would probably get me in some field close to what I wanted to do if it wasn't journalism. And then there was always the opportunity to do political journalism. So when I was meeting with my advisors and just having a lot of conversations across the departments at Morgan, because there wasn't a journalism program, I said, okay, like, let me think about the interest that I actually have in journalism. And so at that point, it really was politics, right? Like, even though I've got, interested in style and culture and fashion, like politics was something that I was very much interested in as well. And it was something I knew I could make a career in. And so I said, if I go very deep in my interest subject area, I should be able to, if I do the right internships and meet the right people, have the right conversations, I can always springboard that into journalism later. I'll take whatever classes Morgan did offer at the time, but I felt like that dual degree. So I actually graduated with a BA in political science and a minor in print journalism because there weren't enough credits to be able to minor in it. And I felt like that deep subject interest area gave me the really stepping stone and platform that I needed to be able to, once I started working in journalism, understand more of the complex systems, understand, have like some theory behind me to be able to ask like bigger, heavy hitting questions. And I will say too, having that political background has now changed even my own politic, right? So like, I think I've always been pretty radical, having like, really progressive ideas and a real critique of systems. But I think having had that like groundwork and foundation, it takes me up into the right now.
Yeah, definitely. Now you went to you was the communications director for mayoral candidate, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. David Warnock. That made me vote for him, just to let you know. Because I mean, I trust your vision and the messaging and everything. So, but what was it like shifting? Because now you're kind of going into more of the media relations, public relations from journalism. And I found this interesting because at that same time, I was, let's see, what year was this? 2017. So I had just also kind of made the switch. But mine, when I went to Johns Hopkins, was literally just because I needed a job and I wanted to get back home, and they had a need for somebody with social media experience. So I learned a lot of the public relations stuff and media relations literally on the job. And it was, up until now, the best job I've ever had. How did you make that transition? And what was some of the things that you learned? And what was some of the, what were your growth opportunities that you overcame?
Yeah, so that campaign was from 2015 to 2016. So this was the election, the mayoral election, right after Freddie Gray was murdered by the police in Baltimore. So this was
Yeah.
right after that.
My bad. I was doing the wrong. wrong
It's
subject.
okay. It's completely clear. I was like, let me just correct it for the reader, for the listeners. Like, that's no worries. And so I think so. Basically, the year before that, I had just left journalism, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I had basically had a year that I was working for Baltimore City. I was working for the Department of Recreation and Park. Doing their digital media, which I actually did love that job. Like I loved my team. It was such a fun job. I went from canoeing to being at a, event to being at the pool. Like I just had so many opportunities to meet amazing people in and around Baltimore. And I think I had that itch though still to be kind of more in like the political space and a little bit more of like a heavy career path, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when the opportunity came to take this position, I think I agreed with the candidate on all of his issues because he was a very progressive candidate, even though he was a white candidate in a predominantly Black city. But it, for me, was a career springboard, right? So I knew I wanted to go into politics and wanted to be at the intersection of like media relations and politics. And so I took the position because of that. And I will say that I literally was learning on the job, which is just a wild situation to be in, right? Mm-hmm. Because even though being from Baltimore, I think of Baltimore as like a very small city. Baltimore, 600-something thousand plus people, right? And so it's a large city. The stakes are high. It was a crowded mayoral field. And so I really had to learn, one, I came from print journalism, right? And so I really didn't know a lot about broadcast journalism, the space, the field in general. Like I didn't understand what it took to get like TV cameras at a place. I didn't know the schedule at which the broadcast channels worked. I didn't know how to get in contact with the reporters, the editors, how the news desk worked. Like I didn't know any of that. But what I did know was how to get to print and digital reporters. And so even I had to learn that as I went. So when I was writing press releases and then started to make media calls, when I was trying to get them to press events, I was literally asking the people who would answer the desk questions in real time. Hey, I just sent over a press release. Do you have it? And they would look and they would say, oh, well, we don't make our decisions till insert time. Or they said, well, we don't know if we're going to cover it, right? And I would say, okay, when would you find out if you're going to cover it? Because I think a lot of people would hang up at that point. And they would just say, okay, you don't know if you're going to cover it. Let me know if you do. No, not me. I need to know all of the details. I need to know the who, what, when, where, how, because my campaign manager was going to ask me, right? She expected for me to have 2 television cameras at every press conference we did. And we had a press conference every single week. And so that is an intense situation to be in as a comms director, right? Wow. And so, yeah, if we didn't have two different news stations, and there's only really 3 news stations in Baltimore at that point. And so I was like, if we didn't have those 2 cameras, it was going to be my head that day later in the campaign office.
And you ain't even talking about setting up the press conference, getting the cameras and the waters and making sure that you got the malt box and all that stuff set up. You just talking about just getting it done, and you talking about every week?
Yes, every single week. So we basically wrote out a policy platform every week for probably 8 to 10 weeks. So and everything had to, at some point you had to have a gimmick, right? So I remember at one point we did a wheel of misfortune. So there was this big wheel that we made out of cardboard that actually spun the wheel of fortune wheel, and on every other little tab it had some unfortunate thing that happened in Baltimore that our candidate said they would fix, right? And so during the press conference, the candidate spun the wheel, right? Yeah. And mind you, me and this intern put together this little rickety wheel that we're hoping does not fly off the handles on the press conference, because it's put together with chewing gum and tape, right? But we had to have something to draw in these reporters, because they're didn't you just roll out a policy platform last week too? We back again, Krishana? And I'm like, yes, you are. And I think what also helped was even though I had never worked in broadcast journalism, when I would go to, a scene where someone unfortunately had lost their life in Baltimore, right? When I was the print reporter there, WJZ was there, ABC2 was there, Fox 45 was there. So I got to know the reporters. And so although when I did call, I usually was calling somebody who I met before. Hey, this is Krishana. Do you remember me when I was at the Afro? And we covered that story together. Or do you remember me when I was at the Sun and we covered that education story? And so I was really trying to leverage the contact of people that I knew just to get the information out and in front of people. And I would say, to me, the biggest lesson for people to learn is to have a stamina about you and not take no for an answer, right? And so that means, I think sometimes in this generation, people get anxiety on the phone or feel like they're bugging people too much when they call them. And it's like, no, this is literally the news business. This is the media business. I'm going to keep picking up my phone every hour and calling you until you tell me that you're covering this thing. Because that's important to this candidate in the story, right? And if I say I care about the people in Baltimore, and I think this candidate has the good ideas to help people's lives, like, it's important for those cameras to be there so that people know that this news happened. And so I would say that, like, that is so important for people to, like, get out of their shell and kind of, like, not be easily, like, embarrassed, right? Yeah. Like, when you work in media, like, you need to have, like, a second face, right? And you can't be embarrassed because this is your 5th time calling this person and they're still telling you, I don't know if I'm coming because something else is pressing. Like, no, I'm calling you. I'm like, okay, that's fine, Tim, but I'm gonna call you back in maybe about 2 hours because the press conference is in 3, so you let me know, right? Yeah. And so I think that's, like, the important stuff of working in media.
Yeah, I can imagine that can be, especially difficult with politics. See, like, when I was doing medicine, and most of the time, a lot of stuff we covered, we knew people was gonna come out. Like when we did the first ever penis transplant, right? And it was like we knew it was coming. I'm breaking the 5th wall here. We knew it was coming that Friday, like that Thursday or Friday. We was like, okay, Monday we're gonna, release this information. And the whole weekend is keeping quiet about it because you about to go viral. And then Tuesday, it comes out Monday, Tuesday, everybody wants, I did like 3 or 4 media escorts. And it was like, this is crazy. So I can imagine being on the flip side where you literally trying to, like, pull people to you. Thank you for listening to the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. You can support this podcast by going on foryourwear.com. Go to personalities and see Brian H. Waters. There you can get Breaking Through Glass Ceilings t-shirt or a hoodie, as well as a No Ceilings Above Success t-shirt. Go to foryourwear.com. Make sure you also check out some of the other podcasters and professional wrestlers as well. You would then, like, go to, like, America Votes, and now you've propelled your career to do more communication stuff. So how would you say that helped you into the next part of your career? And what were some of the rewarding things you have been able to do since then?
Yeah, I think, like you mentioned, America Votes is important because when I got there, they hadn't had a comms person there since 2012. So I got there in 2016. And so coming from the campaign, I'm, like, ready to go. Like, I'm on fire, ready to go. Like, I'm calling reporters right now. It's nothing. Like, I'm going to make sure that you get the press that you need. And they were like, well, hold your horses. Like, we don't really operate that way. Like, we kind of sometimes do press. We don't really like our people talking to reporters. Like, let's wait a second. And I'm like, no, I can draft the talking points right now. Like, the talking points are ready. Like, they're already printed out. And so I would say that, like, from job to job, the capacity of which I was needed changed. And so what was great about the America Votes job is because their actual capacity and need for comms was a little bit lower, I was able to really grow as a manager at that role. So that was my first time actually have the opportunity to hire my own staff and manage people as well. And so to really go through that interview process and think through, what do I actually need? What gaps do I need to fill? Like, what things don't I have that I think that skill set wise that I need? Or what are things that, like, are taking me too much time to do? And I would rather someone else do them so that I can do other things that only I can do, right? That only I have the skill set to do. And then, like, putting forth that full job description, hiring folks, training them. And so, to me, I think when people grow as a manager and grow in their career and get from being the person doing everything to starting thinking strategically, big picture, big vision, how do I run a team so that other people are also growing in their skill set? I
Mm-hmm.
really push for people to do management training. Like, I think it's so important. So I did my training through the management center. And I would say that, like, I recommend that resource to people all the time. The management center has both virtual and in-person trainings, especially with COVID. Like, they've gone virtual in a lot of instances. And I think it really provided me the opportunity to to put forth a real vision for what a team can look like. And so then I also got the opportunity to increase other skill sets that I didn't have. So, like, I came from journalism, so I can do comms with my eyes closed, right? Like, I can write you talking points, I can write you messaging, I can do a press release, media advisory, I can get reporters there. Like, that's easy to me. And then I had also worked in like organic digital. So I had done like, Facebook and Twitter and all those things from an organic standpoint. But what I had never done was paid media, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
like that paid digital media was the skill gap that I had. And so what I really think that like that next step gave me the opportunity to think about what skill sets do I need to really propel my career as well. And so the other thing is there are not a lot of Black women in digital advertising. Like, they're just not,
Right.
especially ones on the political side. Like, there's definitely a few handful of people who who have that skill set at large, right? Who like can actually do it, who work on the left side of the political aisle, and who can do the work. And then there's even fewer Black women. And so I knew that if I had this skill set, I would always have a job, right? Because like it was so new and people were just starting to do it. And people were really just starting to take their money from TV and put it on Hulu and Roku and, Instagram and Facebook and like really put their ads there as well. And so I was able to I worked at a super PAC after I left America Votes and as a deputy creative director. And so that
Mm-hmm.
was my first opportunity to like fully immerse myself in like paid media. And I always tell people, like, if you work in comms and you are looking for a way to become invaluable in your skill set and you're a Black person, like, learn how to do paid. And even if you don't do it often, but if you know how to do it either on the creative side or on the media planning buying side, right? Because there's actually two tracks there. And some people have a shared skill set. But if you can do that, like, you're invincible, right? Because every single election cycle, some candidate somewhere, some super PAC somewhere is going to want to run ads and they're going to ask you, how can I reach people on the TikTok, right? Somebody's going to ask that, and I'm first going to say, well, actually, TikTok doesn't take political ads, so you can't reach people in that way there, but you can go influencers, you can go user-generated content, etc. And so I think, like, when you have that skill set and when you're able to really, like, make yourself, the person, the player. And so since I've been in the consulting world, which I've been in now for 4 years, which I cannot believe it has been that long that I've now been in an agency.
Mm-hmm.
I very much have grown my interest and skill set as like a political operative of how to turn out, reach, and persuade like Black people as well as people of color on the Democratic side, as well as like some persuasion towards white voters. That's like been my bread and butter for the last 4 years of
Mm-hmm.
content that I've really done, as well as advocacy work. And I need more people like us in that space. So this is my little plug that if people are interested in that, they can always hit me up, and I'm happy to do some little informational interviews with people to try to get them into that space as well.
Oh, that's awesome. That's definitely getting clipped off of social media. Um, one of the things that, real quick, I want to slide back to was the transition, because you mentioned something that I'm so familiar with is when you used to going 100 miles an hour and then you got to slow it down. For me, it was like, sports was all day, every day, like shoot, edit, post a day. Then I
Mm-hmm.
go to Johns Hopkins. It's like, oh, well, we're going to shoot this and we're not posting it till later, so it's not that fast paced. How did you handle that, going from so fast to politics to like, just kind of taking your time and slowing down a little bit? How did you handle that? What kind of advice would you give to people making those transitions?
Yeah, that transition was hard for me because, basically my entire career, I have been at 100 miles per hour. Like, journalism was like that for me. And then my initial like entrance into comms was like that for me as well. So it
Mm-hmm.
was definitely a way, way, way slower pace. And so I would say two things. One, that's when I got a master's degree because I had a lot of time on my hands and said, well, like, what can I do with my extra capacity? I'm going to get a master's degree. And I think too, like, it gave me, I think, the opportunity to sit and think and wonder more about like how did I see myself long term, right? And I think that like there are seasons for different things. And you can't operate at that fast going pace long term. You're gonna feel it in your body. You're going to feel it mentally, emotionally. You're going to feel it if you have, family, friends, if you have a partner, with your kids. Like, you're going to feel that at some point because you're just going so quickly. And so while you can sustain that for one period and season of your life, it shouldn't be every season, right? Like, that's how people burn out and eventually like want to leave the space altogether.
Mm-hmm.
And so I say revel in those times, enjoy those times, take up a hobby, find what your other interests are. And so for me, during that time, I realized that my other interest was kind of going full circle back to the conversation. I still love fiction writing. I knew that I still love fiction writing. I knew that was still so near and dear to my heart. And for fiction, for me, it's speculative fiction, sci-fi, and fantasy writing because I wanted to envision a world that doesn't currently exist, right? So like, without the racism, the sexism, capitalism, xenophobia, homophobia, without all of these things, like, what world can we live in? And so that's what speculative fiction does for me. It allows me to like envision this world that doesn't currently exist and see what it could look like. And so that's when I got into reading Octavia Butler and I really like challenged my own thoughts and outlooks of the world. That's when I became a prison abolitionist, right? Like, so I think like spend those seasons doing that inward digging. That's what people want to call like shadow work these days, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's your shadow side? I think like it's okay. And I think sometimes people run from that. Like, people run from that introspection, that slow down, that thing that COVID did for us, right? Like, it slowed everybody down. It had them in the house. And I think people finally got to see who they were on the inside. And so what I would say, in my advice, is don't run from that space. Don't feel like you have to fill it with 50, 11 things. Like, take your time, spend time with yourself, breathe, and figure out who you are outside of your career, right? Because like, those careers come and go, and we all know that each and every one of us can get laid off tomorrow, right? Like, these media companies are not as stable as they used to be, and these careers are not as stable as they used to be, and like, the economy isn't either, right? And so you need to have self-worth and know who you are outside of your job title, right? Like, who are you as a person? And I think that those slow seasons give you the opportunity to figure that out.
Wow, you dropping gems today. That might be the name of the episode. Figure out who you are outside your career. um, and that's one thing I want to get into also. Is you recently brought back your YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
So which I'm excited about. We in 2013 we was working on a
Yes.
couple of projects and we had some fun. And again, you pushing me because at this time I'm like transitioning and really getting more comfortable shooting and editing, and thanks to you I got a lot of reps, understanding, like, buying more equipment, so using more handheld mics, and really understanding how to sync good audio, not just camera audio or separate audio. But let's just talk about your YouTube channel and what you do, what you cover, so the people can watch, because the link will be in the bio so they can subscribe. Let's get you to 1 million subscribers. But yeah, talk about it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brian. I feel like the YouTube channel was a long time coming, and I really believe in the universe won't give you something until you're ready for it, right? And so, I kind of tried to have a channel before, when you and I were working together and we did some of the like, man on the street interviews in Baltimore, but I feel like I wasn't ready. Like, if I would have done it and had critiques or criticisms, or people would have like, said that they didn't like it, I would have felt it. I didn't have the armor at that point to have that type of a platform in that space at that time. And so it's something about a transformation, at least for me, that I feel like I had in a rebirth I had when I had my second baby, right? And they talk about like being in labor and becoming a mom sometimes can be a rebirth for a mom as well. And I felt that because I remember right before I had my son, being like, I've been wanting to do YouTube for so long. And I always get anxiety about it. I always, think about doing it and get too scared to post. Or what are people going to think about me? Right? What if people critique me? Oh, are people going to talk bad about behind my back and say, who does Krishana think she is having this channel? And you know what? I didn't care this time. Like, I don't care if you don't like the content. If you don't like it, it's not for you. Turn it off. If you want to, like, send it to your friend and be like, you see, sis, like, who does she think she is with this channel? I don't care, because I know that there's a space and a place for this content for a very select group of people, right? So for my channel, it's very much an intersection of like media, motherhood, books and writing, which are the things that I hold very much near and dear to my heart. And it's really an opportunity for me to share, the things that I've learned with other people, right? So, they always say like YouTube channel should educate, inspire, or entertain. I'm not a comedian. This is not an entertainment channel, right? But I do hope to educate and inspire people, right? I had a home birth with a midwife, which is something that a lot of Black people don't do, right? Like a lot of people don't even know about it, right? And so for me, launching my channel was an opportunity to tell people and give them insight into here's another path for you, because Black women and Black maternal mortality rate is increasing and it's shooting through the roof. A lot of Black women are having bad outcomes at hospitals. And so if you decide to go to a hospital, that's fine, but at least be informed about this other option that you have. And here's what it could look like. And here's what my experience was. And this is how much it costs. And like, I'm giving you all the information. This is how much it costs. This is what I did. This is how I found the people, right? Even when it comes to my writing, same thing. Like I try to be so transparent because I'm giving people the information that I wish I could have found online that I couldn't find about writing, being an author, and about motherhood. And so all the things. And so I would say for folks who are looking for a very much unfiltered reality into a window into some of these things, like please definitely come over to the channel. I'm always happy to like grow this community and be in community with new people. I think like social media and the internet have given us like this broader community of like-minded folks. And so if you feel like that resonates with you, please like get in touch, hit me up on the channel, and definitely like take a look.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm proud. I was happy to see that you had did it. Like I said, I know it was something that you've been wanting to do for a long time, and I love what you said. The universe won't give you something until you're ready for it. And that's spot on. That also could be the title of this episode. You dropping gems. not that I expected anything less. But I still had to recognize it. Now I want to talk real quick before we get out of here. Just how do you like balance that? Because that's what people a lot of people don't understand how to do. And sure, I tell people, but you hear from me all the time, whatever. But how do you balance your YouTube channel as well as being, the head of media and campaigns at AB Partners?
Yeah. So right now, one of the reasons that it works is that I'm still on maternity leave. So I haven't gone back to work yet. So one reason it works is because of that. But what I will say is like, I'm constantly spending the little time that I can find around the edges thinking about my channel, right? And what could be content and what's next. And so, for example, like, of course, I would prefer to be in front of my actual laptop when I'm like, thinking through channels and creating concepts and like editing my videos, but I don't have that luxury. I have a 3-month-old baby and I have a 3-year-old, right? And I'm also a wife and I got other stuff. I have a job, like I have things going on. And so I think for me, like learning how to go mobile has been like the most important thing. And Brian, we talked about this because I had a hard time editing one of my videos in a mobile app that I was using. But to me, like it's so easy for me to be nursing my baby and like editing my video while I'm with him, right? Because I'm on mobile. And so I think that like all this technology has given us the opportunity to like be able to like multitask and do different things in real time, and has really allowed me to be consistent and think about like what things am I looking for. I also like ask my subscribers a lot, like what questions do you have, what things do you want to know, so I don't have to come up with all the ideas as well, and I'm actually feeding them the things they want. And then I think most importantly is like doing the time audit. So one of the things me and my husband talked about, and he's a big proponent of, is like doing a time audit. So he really goes through like every single hour of his day and figures out like, what is my schedule? When do I need to like shower? When do I need to work out? When do I need to cook, do this, do that? And finding those blocks of time that you have that you can actually do things, and basically holding them sacred, right? So like if somebody wants to go to eat dinner to a restaurant during that time period, my answer is no, right? Because that is my time that I do my YouTube channel, or that is my time that I work out, or whatever the case may be. And so really holding your calendar as tight as you can. And so yes, I still make time for fun and dates and all that kind of stuff. That's important, but I have to stick to the calendar. And once it's full, right? That's just what it is. I can't, that time can't be they can't be that flexible. It has to be rigid and able to like in order to meet the deadlines that I had and to make it. And so I would tell people like, yes, you have to be a little bit selfish with your time and be realistic once you make that time audit to say like, when do I actually have time to do these things? And then like actually having to follow through to do it, which means that you can't spend, those extra 30 minutes that you spent scrolling through TikTok was your time to do that work, right? So like you might want to turn your phone off. You might want to put one of those apps in that tells you that your time is up. Whatever you need to do. If you got to put your phone in the closet to like get things done, do that, because people don't realize how much time they have around the edges that they're just like letting go to the wayside.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up too, is putting it on a calendar. Like, that's important. Especially when you want to be consistent, because like that's what I tell people as far as like the wrestling realm is concerned. 10 o'clock or 10:30 Wednesday nights, boom. Now we're going live, so it helps easier. But I know my brothers can be held accountable. They know every Wednesday we live. Before, when it was recording, once we put it on the calendar, it's still like it was a priority. But now transitioning, we going live, it's you advertising. But before we get out of here, I ask you this question. When was your breaking through the glass moment? When did you realize, like, yeah, and like, I mean, obviously, I know you humble, so you ain't gonna say I'm pretty good at this. But when did you realize, you was living in your purpose and doing what you were supposed to be doing, and was pretty good at what you do?
Yeah, I actually can pinpoint it. So after college, I was living in Florida and I got a job working at like style publication down there. And I kept feeling like the fit wasn't right. Like like, as much as I said I wanted to do fashion and culture or whatever, I got to an opportunity to do it. And I'm like, I'm not feeling this. And so I actually did a thing that I would probably not advise a lot of people to do unless they are sure about it. But I quit my job with no notice and went home. And when I got back home, I went back to work at the Afro, and I kept telling my mom, like, I don't know if this was the right thing. Like, I don't know if this is the right call. Like, I'm just kind of back, not fully a staff writer, not making a lot of money. I can't afford my own apartment. Like, how do I operate in this space? And I had wrote maybe my first story after coming back from Florida. And I got a phone call from somebody at WEAA, which is one of the local radio stations in Baltimore. And they said, hey, Krishana, I'm a producer at WEAA and I have your story here. We want you to come on air and talk about your story on the Mark Steiner show. And I was like, what do you mean? I've been listening to Mark Steiner since I was a kid. Like, you want me to come talk on the show? Like, I just didn't even know the opportunities like that could happen, right? And I didn't even know that like somebody was paying attention to the stories that I was writing and thinking like this will be a good guest for our show to talk and to actually talk through their reporting. And so from there, I went on show after show on WEAA and was constantly on the radio, and then got an opportunity to do Square Off on ABC2 with Richard Scher. And that's one of the like major programs my mom used to watch when I was a kid. It came on like Channel 2 on Sundays, right about the time that we were leaving out to go to church, right? And my mom was going to stop and watch that show. And so to me, it felt like when I knew that people in Baltimore saw me and saw something bigger for me than what I could even see for myself, right? Like I could not have imagined at that time that somebody would want me to be a pundit or to like give my take or my political view on any of these issues happening in Baltimore. And I was only 22. Like, I don't know if people knew how young I was. And I was also like, I just graduated. I don't know anything. Right. But I think that gave me the confidence to know that like, I have a voice that many people don't have, an opportunity many people don't have. And I got to like use this fully, right? And put on my city, put my people on. Like, I never saw people who look like me on those channels who are from where I'm from, like talking, right? And so I think that was it for me, honestly. Like, people saw something in me that I hadn't yet saw in myself.
Amazing. Well, I know we get ready to get out of here. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate you put me on your calendar and everything.
No, thank you.
And but yeah, let the people know where they can find you for those listening and not watching on YouTube.
Yeah, so I'm on at Krishana Davis on everything. So Twitter, Instagram. I recently kind of launched the TikTok channel, so I'm there as well as on my YouTube channel as well. And I also have a website, so it's KrishanaDavis.com. And so you can reach me on pretty much any social media platform that exists as my name.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, make sure y'all follow Krishana. Krishana, I appreciate you so much. Folks, remember, do not let anybody place a ceiling above your success. So long, everybody.
What up? It's your boy Blue Magic, owner of For Your Wear and one half of the Mixed Tag Show. Now, I know you've seen the announcements for some of your favorite podcasters and wrestlers. I've decided to expand my business to become a vendor so that people from the wrestling community have a better way to communicate with some of their favorites. So check out foryourwear.com and see if your favorite podcaster or wrestler has partnered up with me. If not, let them know that they should. Also, if you're looking for a vendor for your merchandise, reach out to me at Blue Magic Grind, spell how it sound, on Twitter and Instagram, or at For Your Wear, FORURWEAR, on Twitter and on Instagram. Shout out to Brian H. Waters and Breaking Through Glass Ceilings. Their merchandise are already up, and they're one of the first ones that's supported, so go support them. All right? Peace.